Hey everyone, Jen here. Today I'm going to talk about Bill Binney. And Bill Binney is an NSA whistleblower. He is extremely fascinating. And if you have heard of him, hopefully you'll learn some additional information today because I have a special announcement to make as well. And if you haven't heard of him, well, today you're going to learn about a really great figure and a true American hero. He really is. Of course, the corporate media tries to paint him as this whack job, this crazy person. He's not. He's one of the most highly regarded. He was a technical director for the NSA, and he worked there for more than 30 years. And he is one of the most highly regarded technical people there. I mean, that's what he did. That's why he became so highly regarded. That's why he became the director. And since he decided to become a whistleblower, and I'll get into the reasons why, he's been smeared, his house has been raided by the FBI, he's had his security clearance stripped, a lot of other things have happened to him as well. And so he's kind of had to go to alternative media instead of corporate media because he's slammed and smeared and painted as a whack job, as I said. So forgive me for looking off camera a little bit. I have some notes here. I don't have a fancy teleprompter. I don't have OBS or Wirecast or whatever Jordan has. But you know, it'll be good. We'll all get through it. Okay, so first of all, as I said, Bill Binney spent more than 30 years with the NSA. I believe it was 32 years. And he became the technical director. And he actually resigned in October. The specific date there is October 31st, 2001. And you might notice that the date is 2001 and right after 9/11. So there's a very specific reason that he chose to resign during that time. And it's because he couldn't stomach what the NSA and the government in general was doing and what they had failed to do. And he believes that many lives were lost, aka all the lives lost from 9/11 or due to 9/11, because the NSA failed to do its job, and in some cases on purpose. They purposely failed to do their job. And I'll get into more about how Bill Binney had developed a program that could have completely prevented 9/11, but they told him to stop using it, and they chose to use something else instead. So let's get more into those details. So obviously 9/11 happened. Before 9/11, he and others developed a program, software called Thinthread. And what Thinthread would do was safely, and by safely I mean it wouldn't steal Americans' data. It would collect the metadata and aggregate that, and not until there was cause for alarm would it kind of pull that data together and give information used to prevent things like 9/11. So that was Thinthread. But the NSA said, no, we're not going to use that. We're going to use another program instead. And that program was called Trailblazer. And there were a lot of problems with Trailblazer, and obviously the NSA doesn't want to admit this, but they went through, after 9/11, they went through their Trailblazer data and said, oh, no, there's no way we could have prevented this. There's no data that came through. Well, Bill Binney fired up good old Thinthread and found a lot of information that could have been used to stop 9/11. They had a lot, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot of data about what was going to happen, who was involved, everything that they would have needed to know to stop 9/11, if only they had continued to use Thinthread versus Trailblazer. So Bill Binney, not only was he upset that they'd stopped using Thinthread, he was also upset that they were collecting more information on people than they needed to. They were invading privacy, essentially. So in September, after he retired, and he knew that the NSA was spying on citizens, and he was a strong voice against the Bush administration and later the Obama administration. In September 2002, again, this was after he'd retired, he, along with J. Kirk Wiebe, excuse me if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, and Edward Loomis, asked the U.S. Defense Department Inspector General to investigate the NSA's waste of money on Trailblazer. Again, it didn't work. And he also was very vocal about the fact that the NSA was spying on U.S. citizens once again. And he said that the spying program that they had, Trailblazer, which in addition to spying on U.S. citizens, it was also ineffective in other ways because it didn't gather everything, like I said, about 9/11 or anything at all. And even so, Bill Binney said, it's better than anything the KGB, Stasi, or Gestapo and SS ever had. And he said that's the path toward a totalitarian dictatorship because the NSA has everything on you, me, everyone. And so we can thank him for being a whistleblower. We can thank him for coming forward with what he knew. He's not some guy just saying stuff. He didn't work as, not to put down Snowden at all, but he wasn't a contractor. He didn't work there for just a couple of years. He worked there for 30 years. He is telling the truth in what he says. I strongly believe that. He has no reason to lie. He has given up a lot in order to share this information. And when Snowden came forward, because again, Snowden was a contractor, it vindicated everything that Bill Binney and his fellow whistleblowers, Thomas Drake and Loomis and Wiebe, had done and said. So we can thank Snowden. We can thank all these whistleblowers. They are the true heroes. And as I say this, Chelsea Manning, another whistleblower and hero, has just been tossed in jail again because she won't testify against WikiLeaks. They'll do anything to try to get these whistleblowers. Surprisingly, Bill Binney has not been to jail over this, but his house has been raided, and I'll get into that in a little bit. So again, they found that Thinthread would have uncovered 9/11 beforehand, and it took a few years, but the New York Times actually did an investigation into the NSA and what they called the warrantless eavesdropping program. And they actually interviewed Bill Binney as part of this, and I think he did 3 interviews, and this was in 2007 that he did the interviews, although the investigation took place in 2005. So he was cleared of wrongdoing after these interviews with the FBI, and he had a consulting company. At that time, he had his security clearance and all of that, and he had quite a successful business consulting once again. He was not a consultant before, but afterwards he became a consultant, and a highly valuable one because he truly knew the inner workings of the NSA. But it wasn't a fairy tale ending, whistleblowing and then kind of living life. He was raided in early July 2007. It was early in the morning. He was actually taking a shower, and a dozen agents came into his house, and while he was in the shower, one of the agents came into the bathroom, obviously Bill Binney naked there, and pointed a gun at him. And he was just kind of like, "Can I put some clothes on, please?" He actually did an interview where he said it that way, and he said he wasn't really bothered by it because he knew he didn't have anything to hide, and he believes, even though he's doing this at great risk to himself, he could be taken out. And he told his lawyer actually at one point, he said, "I would not commit suicide, please know that." Because he wouldn't commit suicide, because he will not commit suicide. He needs people to know that if he dies suddenly or commits suicide, it's not the case that he's been taken out, and there's a real possibility of that. So again, he was showering. They pointed a gun at him. They ended up taking a computer, disks, and personal and business records, and then the NSA ended up revoking his security clearance. This actually destroyed his business because the consulting, the type of consulting that he did, he needed that security clearance in order to do it. So not having that was devastating to the business, and he had to shut it down. So that's kind of the short version of Bill Binney's story. I actually, well, his story to that point, 2007, there's a lot more to come. There's a great documentary called A Good American, and right now it's on Amazon Prime or Amazon, you can rent it. And it goes through everything I just told you, but it interviews Bill Binney, and it's really, really good. So highly recommend you watch that to get even more information, even more straight from Binney, and you'll really enjoy it. You'll really get a full picture of what he did and what he risked and how terrible the NSA is. They, again, have everything. They have everything you type and write and say. They have everything I type and write and say. They have everything. They know everything about all of us. I mean, if another country was doing this to this extent, we would try to topple their dictator, wouldn't we? So, another interesting thing is Binney says that the NSA absolutely has Hillary's emails. So remember that in 2016, that was a really big campaign issue. People get all over Trump for saying, you know, if Russia could get those emails, that would be great, or whatever it was he said. But the fact is, the NSA already has the emails. So they have everything, once again. So why wouldn't the FBI call on the NSA and say, send us those emails? We need that as part of our investigation. Think about that for a minute. Why wouldn't they? And Binney believes, and I agree with him, that it's because they don't want anyone to know that they are able to get those emails, because then people would realize, oh, if they had all of Hillary's emails, they must have mine too. They don't want people to know that. They don't want people to realize that. So yes, it's some really shady stuff that's going on. Some really disturbing stuff. They have Hillary's emails. It's not shocking, but it is a shock to the system once people open their eyes and realize the extent of this. And thankfully, Bill Binney has come forward and says, you know, based on his experiences working for the NSA for 30 plus years, he knows that they have those emails and a lot more. And he says, that, again, that this is a totalitarian approach. This is what dictatorships do. But we have it better than any dictatorship or totalitarian government. We have everything. When he was in the NSA, he said, you know, our job was to gather foreign intelligence, foreign data, to know everything that's going on in other countries. Well, now we know everything that's going on in our own country, and that's where he drew the line, because that wasn't what he'd signed on for. That's why he became a whistleblower. Let's see here. Another very interesting and more recent thing is Bill Binney says that the DNC hack that supposedly Russia did, which we all know that is most likely not the case. He used his mathematical genius, and again, he's one of the best mathematicians in the world. He's one of the best technical people in the world. He used that to determine that the DNC emails were not hacked. So that means Russia didn't do it. It also means that they were leaked from inside the DNC. It was an inside job, if for lack of better terminology. So it's all this hubbub about Russia, all this being up in arms about it. The NSA knows where those emails came from. They know that it was a leak versus a hack. And again, I believe Bill Binney on this because he has the experience, and he's one of the few people in the entire world that does. He knew things that most people in the NSA could never hope to know because he was so high up. And he says the DNC emails were leaked. So that might open up other questions for you. Who was it that leaked those emails? I want to end by telling you about something that Ty and I are doing this week, and that is we're going to be meeting Bill Binney. And we're going to be meeting him in Vancouver, Canada. And the reason for that is because he is winning a prize from Peter Allard, who is an amazing person He's a philanthropist for truly good causes, for independent media, for local programs that help people in the area where he lives, all over the world. He truly uses his money for good. You know, if we had 100 Peter Allards, this world would be so much better. But we have Peter. 2 years ago, I met him at the Allard Prize. And what the Allard Prize is people are nominated from all over the world who have done good deeds, or blown the whistle on something, or done something good at great risk to themselves. These are the most courageous people in the whole world. Sometimes they're journalists, sometimes they're lawyers. They're people from all walks of life, from all different countries. And the last Allard Prize, so it takes place every 2 years, the Operation Car Wash won, and I definitely think you should look into that because it's fascinating. It was one of the biggest scandals in world history. It was fascinating to meet the folks from Operation Car Wash. So look into that, but also this week is kind of a mini Allard Prize. There aren't going to be a ton of nominees, and it's just Bill Binney. So this is a Lifetime Achievement Award for Bill, and he will be receiving a prize of $50,000 that he can choose to donate to to a nonprofit of his choice. So that's wonderful. I can't wait. I'm going to be interviewing Bill Binney. Also, Abby Martin is going to be hosting this ceremony, so I hope you watch it. It hopefully will be streamed. We're working the kinks out on that because we're not so sure about the data plan working in Canada, but we're doing everything we can, Ty and I, to figure that out because you guys will definitely want to watch this. You'll definitely want to watch Abby. And yeah, I'm excited. I'll get to interview Bill Binney. And I actually found out, you know, now I'm going to Vancouver to meet him and to interview him. It's kind of funny. He lives about 30 to 40 minutes away from me, and I didn't know that. So that's kind of cool, too. Lastly, Ty and I will be investigating the homeless in Vancouver. We'll be looking into the YMCA, which is run differently than ours here in the U.S. And going back to the homelessness story, the homelessness situation in Vancouver is getting worse. And we'll also be going down to Seattle to investigate their homelessness problem. We'll be interviewing Shama Sawant. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. She's fantastic. She's a Seattle councilwoman, and she does a lot of work with the homeless and for the homeless. We'll be interviewing others who run organizations to help. We'll be interviewing protesters and activists. So there's a lot of good things coming up this week in the field, and I hope you tune in for it. I hope you're excited about Bill Binney and him winning this Lifetime Achievement Award from Peter Allard, who again is a wonderful person. And just, yeah, stick with us. Keep watching Status Coup. Become a GoFundMe donor if you haven't already. Become a member for $5 to $10 or an annual payment if you aren't already, and you'll get behind the scenes stuff. So behind the scenes stuff from this upcoming trip to Vancouver. A lot of good stuff. So become a member, donate to the GoFundMe. We're trying to get to $50,000 this week, early this week, hopefully. And we'll continue trucking along. Alrighty, bye-bye.